Alright, welcome again to the Celtic Cater. I'm Chef McBride. And we're out here again in Southern California right now trying to go and keep this crusade of teaching Celtic cuisine to everybody out there. We appreciate everybody who tunes in for us all, whether you do it live right now or later on here, and a little bit of other clips. Again, if you haven't liked us on Facebook, the Celtic Cater and Chef McBride, please do that. And go to our website, thecelticcater.com, just so you can get any kind of the things you're missing, and you can email me questions or get any of your spices. Now today we're going to be talking about salmon, which is a very common dish that's used in a lot of different of the Celtic dishes. We can use this in recipes from Scotland, from Ireland, from Wales, the island of Man. We have it from Galicia, uses salmon. Brittany, France, everybody uses salmon. It's been around for a long, long time. Actually, at one time, all the salmon dishes was very, very common in the Celtic Isles, but somewhere around, the 13th century or so, salmon started becoming disfavored. It later on became a type of fish that was only used by the poor. It wasn't until the French Revolution period of time, and when a lot of the noblemen were going, losing their lives in France, well, a lot of their chefs, their culinary worlds, were losing their jobs, and so they had to find work elsewhere, and a lot of them went up to Scotland and Ireland. Scotland because of what was the Old Alliance. And it was there that they went and retaught the Celts how to go and eat salmon again, because it had fallen on disfavor. Since those days, it's been a very, very, very popular dish for it, though. Now, we're going to be talking about smoking salmon, and smoking salmon can be so many different styles. There's cold smoked salmon, which you've seen me do in some other dishes for it all, and then there's hot smoked. Okay, old smoky, hot smoke is what they call for it. When I used to live in Edinburgh, Scotland, there used to be a little place down the way that we used to do fresh hot smoke. It was a fishmonger, and when they did the hot smoke, it takes 15-20 minutes when they put it in the oven. They get this bell just like I did, and ring rub it, and everybody just came running. It was like ice cream for adults. Run and go get your. Now, how you want to smoke salmon can be different styles. I'm going to show you a way, really easy for it all, how you can do it at home. Now, if you're a chef like me, you can have one of these fancy gadgets here, where you can light it all up, you can change the wood, and you actually have a little container, and you smoke the fish on your plate. Great, but and this kind of works for fancy styles and for some lighter dishes, but this is actually, whole setup is about $120, $150. Not the most economical way to go and do things for us. When you want to go in cold, hot smoked salmon, it's a lot different than cold smoke. You can do it simply with just as many things as a couple tin sheets here, some aluminum foil, some plastic wrap, and of course, your wood chips, and a torch to fire them. So before we go and do this, we're going to go and get our salmon made up, and we're going to do a little honey mustard salmon sauce. So I've got my salmon right now already brining, and that's what you want to do. You want to put them in a nice salt bath here for it all. We're going to take our salmons out right now, because we need to pat them dry. Actually, let's finish making our sauce first. My apologies. We want to show you the sauce, and then we can pat this dry here on our dish for us. So at the beginning, what we're doing, honey mustard sauce. Now, honey is the oldest flavoring used in all 8 Celtic nations, going back pre-Stone Age period. Now, spices. The number one spice used in all 8 Celtic nations is pepper. The number 2 is mustard. Mustard powder, mustard seeds. That is so common in so many dishes. So to start with in our dish here, we're going to go and get a little bit of honey mustard, or honey mixed in here. Start off with our honey in our little dish here. And we're not going to make a lot, we're just making a little bit, so I'm kind of small, my size dish. And we're going to add a little malt vinegar into it. Vinegar is kind of your catalyst for a lot, and it'll give us a little bit more flavor to it all. But we also want to add in a little bit of blended whiskey. Now you'll notice that I'm not telling you how much to put in each, but because I'm making a smaller batch, but that is normally found in my soup, sauces, stocks, and stews cookbook. So we're going to get some heat going here. Not much, just a little bit here. And we're going to add in our mustard powder. A little bit of cinnamon. And a little bit of ginger. Just for flavoring, and kind of mixing this all up. We don't want to heat it up too long, what we're doing is we're just going long enough to making sure that all the ingredients are used up. And actually, you need to put just a little bit more honey mustard, or the mustard, into it. Now, when I do a full version of this, we're actually using mustard powder and mustard seeds combination, and it gets a better flavor for it all if you're making a larger batch. I'm just making a small batch for what we're doing here today. Make sure we whisk it, and it is just a nice little brown fizz. Add just a little bit more honey into this. Now, where you're getting your honey, really find out what's local to you, where's an actual honey maker for it all, because they are making it, and they're not. You have to go and cook down honey just a little bit, but you don't want to cook out too much. You don't want to distill it to the point where you've lost all the medicinal aspects of honey in your community area. Local honey is always the best. For myself, when we're traveling and going all over the place, I'm not always able to do all that, and most restaurants don't get to have that opportunity, but you at home definitely can. So we've got our honey mustard sauce right now. We're going to put that off to the side. So take our salmon out, as I said. We kind of want to pat dry our salmon. Now, I have two different types of salmon here. I have a couple of salmon fillets that are actually a wild cut salmon. Like I said, they've been soaking in a brine solution of salt water. And then I also have a salmon steak. This is just a normal North Atlantic salmon. The other two are wild salmon. But it gives you a different flavoring for everything here. Alright. Pat our salmon dry for the most part. And this is where I'm going to take my... Now, like I said, I've got my wood chips right here in a pan first. I've also taken a second pan here, the same size, and I perforated it with a lot of different holes into it. Knife holes for it. I've got something on here, if you got any kind of a baking fish or anything, something that you can elevate the fish up to the top for. So here's where we want to go and take our salmon. Now, our steaks, or salmon fillets, excuse me, are easy enough that I can just sit right in there, get it nicely coated for it all, and just lay that across the top. Lay that across the top. You want to get it kind of air off the top so that you can get as much smoke into this chamber that we're going to make here. And then we got our steak right there. And I'm going to pour just a little bit more, not much, of our seed. And we're going to save a little bit this later, because we're going to want to go and cook it up just a bit more thicker than what we have. Now, when I'm here, I want to make an airtight top sealant for this. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take a little plastic wrap. Good thing we're going through a lot of gloves these days, right? Alright. Well, actually, I'm going to need, before I get onto that, it's kind of hard. Any of you who have been wearing gloves right now because of our lockdown know how hard it is really to do a lot of things with your gloves on. Alright. So all we're doing here is we're just making a little bit of a plastic or an airtight seal on the top. Not too much, just enough, because what we're trying to do is we want to catch as much of the smoke and keep it into our chamber that we're creating here. The plastic helps a little bit. You want to make sure it's not sticking to any of the fish. And then you want to take some aluminum foil, and you want really heavy duty. You don't want the thin stuff. You want the really thick stuff. That's what you're going to go and cook your turkey into. That's what you're looking for. Alright. And here's where we want to... And we don't want to fold it all the way down. We want to make sure it's there so we can do this. And I'm also going to take my burner back. This is kind of a combination thing. So when you're taking your wood strips, Get yourself a little torch here. And you're trying to burn the wood out, right? The whole thing is, yeah, that's the other thing. You gotta watch on the angle of how you do it because it doesn't want to have you turn down. So I'm just saying, you just want to go and get this burning a little bit. You want to start a little bit of a fire on this, okay? And really you need three things going on for a fire. You need fuel, which we have here in the wood. You need heat, which we're applying right now. And you need oxygen. And when we cover this all up, we're going to be losing the oxygen to an extent. And we're also going to be losing the heat. So that's why I like to do this on a burner right afterwards, so I can keep the heat going. There we go. See, we're starting to pull. Yep. Get a little too close. We start seeing, and we start getting a little flame. That's what we want. We're pretty much just starting a little bit of a fire, control fire here, before we go. This is to make our smoke chamber. I've worked in lots of restaurants and where we've had to go and do this as a quick way to go and make the dishes that are on yours instead of paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a big smoke machine for it all. So here we go. We get this. There we go. A little bit and a little heat. Well, find a little area. Make a little. Here we go. Okay, we got some coals going here. All right. So we get that off. At the same time, I want to go and turn my fire underneath this. Not really heavy, but a little hot. And place this over our dish, and this is where we want to make sure it's all sealed. All right, make sure your aluminum foil is around everything. And just a little bit of heat. You don't want a lot. If you have an electric one, like I always have fire heat because I prefer to cook that way, but if you have an electric grill or electric hot oven stovetop, this actually works better for this stuff. I mean, you just want to keep the heat going for it all. You want to cook this for about 5 minutes, 5-6 minutes or so. So you want to cook salmon. Now, salmon is traditionally supposed to be cooked medium rare. Now, I know not everybody is used to having that. The first time, I'm originally from Colorado. My mother used to go and cook us salmon all the time. She's from Nebraska. For her, always cooking fish was well done, and I never used to enjoy salmon or fish. It wasn't until I went out into Kyle Vlacosh in Scotland, and I was with a few other friends of mine, and they had all ordered salmon that had been caught fresh that day out. And so they brought it in, and they served it traditionally medium rare, which means it's cooked so that it is opaque on the outsides, and the center is just a little bit translucent. It gets you the best flavor for salmon for it all, by far. I know you're going to find some food managers and stuff who are going to say, no, it has to be cooked well done. The more, if you're not a big fan of salmon, the more you cook salmon, the more you're going to get that fishy flavor. It's a little different than what they call cold smoked salmon. Now, cold smoked salmon is where you've gotten something similar to what we've made this little chamber for. It's all here, and you've got a burner like that, a heat plate, hot plate at the bottom, and you stack all your woods, and you have a flue that goes into a chamber that is probably between 36 and 41 degrees. And then that chamber and the smoke comes in, and it'll fill that whole chamber for roughly 6 to 8 hours raw. It's kind of the way the old Celts used to go and do it when they used to smoke their salmon for it all. They used to go and find a cliffside by the ocean that was at low tide, and they'd have a tunnel, and they would dig up to the point where they'd find the branches that were up from the trees from on top of the cliff. And then they would hang their salmon. And when you want to smoke fish like that, you want to hang them by the tail downward after you brine them, so that you can get all the smoke, as much of the smoke in the chamber. Well, then they would, on a ledge, light a large fire, like we'd already gone for it all here, and then just waited for time to go for chamber goes filled in, was able to seal off because of the high tide for it all, and you had this smoke chamber for it all, and just at a very cool temperature, slowly the fish absorbs the smoke. Now we're using hickory today. Two of the ones that I prefer to use always is alderwood, and sometimes you can get cedar. Hickory is really good for salmon, but sometimes can be almost too strong for a flavor. Alderwood is probably one of the better ones because it's when you smoke, especially if you want to go in a haddock or anything, you can use the same thing for smoking cod or anything like that. Alderwood is a little bit lighter for a flavor. So I can see some smoke coming out. I know we've got a hot flame here. Just another minute or so here, and we're going to take these out and check out our chamber here for it all. Like I said, the higher altitude that you are, you're going to have to add a few more minutes. We're kind of a little lower right now, so we're not going to have to be too long. And then we want to use some of that mustard seasoning for it all that we want to garnish up afterwards for it all. So we got our, you see that smoke coming out of it just in the few places that it don't have completely covered, but that whole chamber is being smoked for it all. It's a really, really good flavor. Now I'm going to get my plates out here ready here. When we get it, we want to just take them out and just kind of show you. As I said, about medium rare is where we want to go and cook it. Now with the heat, with the heat coming up, we're actually cooking that salmon, as I said before. So we're thinking we're about right there. I don't want to overcook my salmon. Woo. So first things first, we're going to remove our burner here. Come back to our dish here. We're going to undo our container here. Now we could have gone a little bit longer on this, but you pretty much get the gist of what we're going to be doing for our smoked meat. Now I would like to go and cook this a little bit longer, but it's been nicely smoked right now. I could actually go and put this in the oven, cook it up just a little bit of the last bit of temperature. Now the smaller, thinner ones, you can see have been nicely smoked for it all. You gotta go ahead. So this is how you can kind of hot smoke your salmon in your own kitchen at home for all. Get a really good flavor for this, and it goes really good with your honey mustard whiskey sauce for it all. So I'd like to thank you all very much. I guess that this recipe is in some of our cookbooks, the Scottish cookbook, our Irish cookbook, the soup, sauce, and stocks and stews cookbook is for a honey mustard for flavor for it all. Get a little bit of flavor. There's so many different recipes that you can do salmon. It's really, really beautiful for it all. Nice, nice flavor for it. Remember, cook it about medium rare for it all, just so it's still a little bit translucent in the center for it all. Please like us on Facebook, Celtic Caterer and Chef Eric McBride. Check out any of our books at celticcater.com, and we will see you next week on our review. As they say in Gaelic, Slàinte Flúir, we all meet again. Thank you all very much.